Hey everyone, Willow here. I'm subbing for your Tuesday regular host Pandora, and this week on Starting Out Solitary we are on week 162 and we're talking about witches bottles or witches jars. Do you use them, and if so, how? Yes, I do use them. I use them to protect our house, our property, and all of us who live here. Witches bottles have been used for hundreds of years, and I believe initially they were uncovered in England and the United States. From about the 14th century, I think. They were found buried in far corners of someone's property or land, under their home or the foundations, walled in homes, under porches, and even under fireplaces. There are two main reasons or purposes of using witches bottles, and one of them is for protection or spiritual protection, and the other is to reverse any malicious spells such as hexes or curses. And in that case, the victim will urinate in a jar or a bottle, place sharp objects in there, seal it, and then burn it over a fire. And once that jar shattered, it meant that the hex or the curse was broken. And in some cases, if they knew who it was, then they would actually return it to the sender, where they will be ill or whatever. I don't recommend that, nor do I do that myself personally. To create your own witch's bottle, all you need is an empty jar, a jam jar or a honey jar, such as this. So basically whatever you've got around the house. You don't need to go out and spend a whole heap of money. And size doesn't really matter, so you can even go as small as this little vial. Now you can get these vials here in Australia at the reject shop or the craft shop, where I believe they sell them for about 4 of these for $2, and they come with a little cork in it, and I've lost it. But yeah, size doesn't really matter. It matters what you put in there along with your intent as well, bearing in mind also the smaller the entry point, the harder it may be to place items in there. But after I finish placing everything in there and saying my words of power, I would seal it. So I use super glue to seal the jar. That's just me. So things that you would place in there are sharp objects, and by placing sharp objects, anything baneful that enters the jar, so any negative energy of some sort that is sent your way in your direction, it will be harmed in there. So thinking for you what resembles protection. So placing sharp objects, as I said, rusty nails, pins, needles, shattered glass. Also, the needles are generally bent so that when they're placed in there, the points of each needle or pin are facing in different directions, so that anything baneful enters in there, then it is harmed. Personal things, urine is generally used to fill the jar with at the end after you've finished placing everything in it, and it is said to drown evil. Menstrual blood, saliva, nail clippings, fingernail, toenail clippings, hair as well. So the idea of the bottle is that if anything baneful is sent your way, that because you're placing nails and hair and all that stuff in there, it is most likely, drawn to entering the jar first before you physically. So that's the reason behind that. And as I said, anything that resembles protection for you, so protective herbs, you can place protective herbs in there, such as nettle, rosemary. Generally also, in mine I place anything, because I'm protecting my property, so I may place some soil or some earth from the property as well into the jar, along with some rocks if I have any. Leaves that fall down from a tree that is on my property as well, because I'm imbuing the magic for protection for my property. So anything that resembles that, I will put it in the jar as well. I have read in the past that some people also write their name. I don't feel personally comfortable with writing my name in it because of everything that I've put it in there along with my name. I just don't feel that it's right for me. Salt, you can also place salt in there. Feels like I am forgetting something. Thorns perhaps, so anything sharp again. have some cactus plants as well, so you know, cactus prickles I can put in there. Yeah, and so then I have my words of power, and each item that I'm placing in it is along with my intent and, you know, the words of you know, of my spell as well that I put into the jar. So I do take my time. I have done it both on the dark moon, and I have done it on the full moon as well. Not that I feel that that is important, but for me at that time in my life, whatever I was going through, I was just called to do it, and it so happened to be around the dark moon and the full moon. I guess the thing that got me thinking about this topic is, since I've been practicing on my path, I have been living in this house, and so I thought about what would happen if I was to move houses. In that case, I would most definitely, given the fact of everything that I've placed in my bottle, you know, all the personal stuff, I would definitely dig it up and destroy it, and then when I move to my property, I would create new witches bottles for protection. If you live in an apartment, for example, so obviously you haven't been there while it's been built, you know, all that kind of stuff, or if you don't have a yard of some sort, you can always, you know, create yourself a little vial perhaps and bury it in a pot plant. Generally, they say entry points of the house is a good idea, or a good place to place your witches bottles, because, you know, that's where all the energy flows and comes in. So, you know, a pot plant near the front door, or if you have a little garden bed at the front door, if you can, under your porch, if it's not concreted like mine, you know, there's some ideas as well. But also I like to protect, you know, around the back door as well. So I do have one around there placed as well. And also I think that it's very important to think about, you know, the entry points of your house or your property as well. So I do have one, you know, at the beginning, at the, you know, at the very front of our property as well for protection. And there's another thing too. Sometimes you read in books, you know, 9 nails or 9 pins or whatever. Just go with whatever you feel is right. Obviously, you're putting all the items in your own jar, and you're imbuing it with your intent and your magic. So for me, that's the most important thing, that you resonate with that. Whatever you put in the jar, you know, it speaks protection to you. So yeah, so then I seal my lids, not wax like they traditionally did, using super glue. That's just me. And generally they say to place the jar upside down. I read that in a book way back when, and I, for the life of me, can't remember which book it was or why they did it. I think traditionally maybe it was a thing, but I don't know why exactly. So I don't know, I just felt called to mention that, felt drawn to or called to mention that as well. I think I've covered everything that I wanted to cover. This always happens. I have all these things going in my head, and then, yeah, anyway. Until my next video, thank you so much for watching, and sending you so much love.